the video of the incident to YouTube. The driver honked and gestured casually and inoffensively, Seth writes, telling Cherry to use his blinker. And that's apparently what set the cop off. He then allegedly followed the Uber driver and pulled him over, which is where Seth's video picks up the action. So we don't get to see that part in the video. When you watch the video online, it starts up right where the policeman is already at the window of the car. So we don't actually see what happened before then. Well, Seth's video then picks up what happened. What follows is an expletive-laden tirade peppered with mocking comments about the driver's accent. And I was actually, when I watched the video, I was sort of taken aback at that too, because the dude can't help his accent. He's an immigrant from I don't know where. I don't really care. It doesn't particularly matter. The dude's doing a job. You know, the guy has a job to do and he's trying to do it. And who cares if he has an accent? Big deal, man. Well, in a statement, Uber called the incident unacceptable, as did NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton at a news conference yesterday when announcing that Cherry had been removed from the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, a group of highly trained, locally based, passionately committed investigators that the officer was a part of. So if we have somebody who is as hot-headed as this guy, allegedly as hot-headed as this guy, on the Joint Terrorism Task Force up in New York, I don't really have a whole lot of faith in the Joint Terrorism Task Force up in New York. I mean, I never did, but this just sort of proves, or not really proves, but sort of pushes the idea that perhaps the people who work for government are really not that good at doing what they're supposed to do. And that's sort of something that I'm starting to realize, is that these people who work for government, be they police department employees, or people who work for the Department of Justice, or people who work in the DEA, or people who work in the Border Patrol, all these different agencies, they're really not that good at their jobs. Considering, too, that the Border Patrol is barely even law enforcement, legally speaking, and you don't have to say anything to them when you're crossing the border. It's really, their job is null, honestly, because they don't really do a whole lot other than just get mad that you won't give them your information. And then there's always going to be the guy who says, well, you should give the police your information because you don't want to get in trouble. After all, you have nothing to hide, right? Well, let's say actually that I do have something to hide. Why not? I mean, I have a right to have something to hide, don't I? So let's say that I do have something to hide, which is my personal information, which I don't want to be pushed out all over the place. So yeah, I guess I do have a thing to hide because I don't trust the police with my personal information, period. There we go. Let's get that out there. You know, I don't. I have no reason to. So why does it matter if I don't want to tell them where I'm heading? You know, who cares anyway where I'm heading? What difference does it make? Say you get pulled over and they say, where are you headed tonight? Who cares? You know, just places is where I'm heading. Where do you think? You know, and if you don't answer, they get all upset. Like, well, why won't you tell me? Are you trying to hide something? It's like, what do you care, man, where I'm heading? Who cares? Big deal. You know, I'm going to my friend's house. I'm going to shoot heroin and we're going to run over a bunch of school kids in a stolen car. You know, what do you think I'm going to do? Who cares? Big deal. You know, but it's just another psychological effect of the situation which we're in, where we have this idea that for some reason, if you don't want to tell so-called law enforcement things, then you must be a terrible person with something to hide. Fortunately, that idea is being more and more shaken away, I guess, as time goes by. In fact, I was just reading a story this morning as I was getting ready to come into work about the Border Patrol down in California and Texas and Nevada and New Mexico, all those different states which border the border. And it's actually kind of funny how many Americans are just flat out refusing to say much of anything to the police, or not really the police, the Border Patrol, which perhaps some people will say is uncalled for. I say it's a great example of people exercising their right to say nothing, which you always have, by the way. I actually saw a video. No joke. I saw a video of a Border Patrol agent saying that the Fifth Amendment only applies to you if you've been arrested. If these people don't understand the law, and they're supposed to be so-called law enforcement, I really don't have any faith in law enforcement if they don't even know the law. You know, these guys don't even know what the actual constitutional law is in the country they're supposed to be protecting. Then there's no reason to trust them. Well, that was the Border Patrol, of course, not a sheriff's deputy or a police officer. That was a Border Patrol agent, but still, he's a federal agent. Well, U.S. citizens are protesting Border Patrol checkpoints and refusing questioning. And they're posting videos of it online, according to RT. Some people may say that this is a terrible thing and these people are just being uppity for no reason. I disagree wholeheartedly. These people are actually exercising their rights in the best way possible by doing absolutely nothing. That's the best way you can exercise your rights is actually by just not doing what they tell you to do, because you don't have to 99% of the time. They say, where are you headed? You say, I don't need to answer that. Or they say, do you live at this address? You say, I don't answer questions. Sorry. What's your phone number? I don't answer questions. You don't need that information. That's the best way you can revolt, I guess, peaceably, is to just not answer questions. Well, a growing number of Americans are protesting the invasive Border Patrol checkpoints deep inside the U.S. territory by refusing to answer questions and posting online their recordings of harassment by police officers, which are actually Border Patrol agents. More and more YouTube videos are documenting citizens resist to the Border Patrol at checkpoints throughout the 100-mile zone along U.S. borders. In some cases, motorists are waved through, which actually I think happens more often than not, going by my analysis of the videos, where it seems like 99% of the time, the Border Patrol agent just doesn't want to put up with your crap and he'll wave you through, which is nice. But other times, they will be arrested, sometimes violently, and detained just for not answering questions. In one example, cited by the Houston Chronicle reporter Dane Schiller, a Texas truck driver was forcibly removed from his truck, arrested, and held for several hours after telling officers that he was opting out of discussing his citizenship. Navy veteran Thomas Sauer is his name, 26 years old. He said he lost his job as a result of that. As he was being arrested, they told me that I had the right to remain silent, Sauer told the Chronicle, according to reports. So even though the Border Patrol agents deleted Sauer's cell phone video of the encounter, he was able to retrieve it using data restoration services. The 19-minute video has about 150,000 views on YouTube so far. And so that just goes to show you also the injustices which go on, where they'll actually just try to delete your video if you record them. Because for some odd reason, a lot of them, not all of them, but some of them anyway, think that it's cool to just not be recorded. They say, well, I don't want you to film me, or you can't film here because it's a federal building or whatever. Rick Herbert of California refused to consent to move his car to an inspection area to have it searched. He was dragged out of the vehicle in front of his crying wife and 4-year-old son. Border Patrol cannot legally pull you from your vehicle because you refuse to answer questions, says James Lyle of the ACLU to the Houston Chronicle. Everyone has a right to remain silent and can be compelled to answer, he said. So this is the best sort of uprising, I would say, is just regular old non-compliance. That's the best thing you can do, really, is to just be non-compliant. It's an inoffensive way to stand up for yourself against the tyrannical surveillance and police state in which we live, where you just say, I don't answer questions, or I don't need to answer that, officer. Sorry. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Have a good one.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 AM.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240. Fox News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
So good old down-to-earth, friendly non-compliance tends to be the best way to go about things, particularly when we're talking about dealing with the police, because you don't have to be a mean or rough person when dealing with the police. In fact, that's usually not the best course of action. In fact, I would say that's never the best course of action, because 99% of the time, these guys don't actually know that they're doing anything wrong, if they are doing anything wrong. And even then, even if they're not doing anything wrong, you can still assert your rights without being offensive, right? Now, I have no problem with somebody being offensive, is the thing. Being offensive doesn't really mean a whole lot these days, because most people are very easily offended. In this brave new world, people are very easily offended. So being inoffensive is actually really, really lily-livered half the time, because it means being very nice and cutesy, and I'm not down with that. But just because a police officer is stopping you for, say, what he thinks is a traffic violation, doesn't mean that he's being mean or oppressing you in any way. That's simply incorrect.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Lillian Wu. According to the Associated Press, officials reporting an agreement in the Iran nuclear talks in Switzerland, where Tehran and 6 world powers have reportedly reached common ground on a framework for a deal. The founder of a world-famous megachurch has died.
Dr. Robert H. Schuller built the church that became known as the Crystal Cathedral in 1980 in Orange County, California. The ministry later filed for bankruptcy in 2010, citing debt of more than $43 million. Dr. Schuller was 88.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. More information out on the probe into the Germanwings crash in the French Alps.
After examining Andreas Lubitz's search history on a tablet found at his home, German prosecutors saying it seems the co-pilot had researched suicide methods in the days leading up to the crash.
Fox Radio's Simon Owen. Fox News. We report, you decide.
So this is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. The show we talk about technology and more. And, well, the Border Patrol is mad that people are refusing checkpoints. 99% of the time, the Border Patrol will not do much of anything to you other than just be annoyed and wave you along. But in some specific instances, there's been recordings of the Border Patrol being a little bit more aggressive than they need to be. So this is a bit of a problem for those of us who are fans of asserting your rights. But let's say that these people didn't have a camera. How much worse could the situation be? Well, fortunately, a lot of people these days have something which is a camera of sorts. It's called a smartphone, and it has a little lens on the back most of the time. And in fact, all the time. Mine has 2, actually. I have a front-facing camera and a rear-facing camera, and this allows me to use it to record pretty much anything I could ever want to. So this is a very useful device for me, being I am a journalist of sorts. So this allows me to record different instances which would otherwise go unnoted by some people or unrecorded by some people. Well, U.S. citizens are protesting Border Patrol checkpoints and refusing questioning, and they're posting the videos of it online. According to RT, a growing number of Americans are protesting the invasive Border Patrol checkpoints deep inside U.S. territory, because we're not just talking about entering the country from Mexico, right? Well, this is not just, oh, I'm coming from Mexico, and so obviously they're going to ask for my passport and that sort of thing. No, this is like, I am all the way up near Shreveport, Louisiana, and they're still wanting to check my identification to make sure I'm a real American. This is highly invasive. Obviously, this is highly invasive. This is fascistic, maybe? I'm not sure what the proper terminology is. Some people will defend this and say that, well, this is proper because we need this, because there's a huge influx of illegal immigrants, and because of that, we need to make sure that our kids are safe. It always comes down to my kids. So we need to make sure that our kids are safe, and the best way to do that is to violate everybody's rights by stopping you at the border, even though it's like 50 miles out from the border. And that's actually the best way to protect Americans, is to take away all of their rights. Except, wait a minute, I made a very big mistake there. Did you spot it? The mistake I made was I said they're trying to take away our rights. Uh-oh, that's not true. They can't take away our rights. That's where it gets really funny. You see this all the time, even in Tea Party circles, where they'll say, well, they're trying to take away our rights. They're taking away our rights by doing all these things. No, they're not. They can't take away your rights. What they can do is they can cease to recognize them. They can't just take them away, right? So the camera is further allowing us to keep them accountable, hold them accountable. I'm holding up right now my smartphone. It looks like a black book. It's not. That's just the case. But it's a Lenovo. I'll hold it up for the camera. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. It's a Lenovo A850. It's a nice little phablet. It's really dirty because I hold it up to my face all the time. But it's a great little phone, has a nice camera, records in 720p, can't complain. I also have a Sony Action Cam that I use to record stuff too. And these devices, I haven't had to use them in this context yet, but these devices allow me to potentially hold these people accountable for their actions, whether they be good or bad. You would think that the police would be happy that there are more cameras around, because I thought cops were good people who were just trying to protect their communities, who would then want there to be more cameras to record them protecting their communities, right? You'd think. Well, for some odd reason, a lot of them, especially the sheriff's associations here in the States, are upset about body cams, sometimes to the point where they'll just turn off their body cams. Well, fortunately, we have smartphones, or we have video recorders of some sort, which allows us to take photos, take video of different things happening, which would otherwise go undocumented, which is a huge shame. We have this great tool called YouTube. We have Vimeo, we have Dailymotion, we have Metacafe, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, all these different resources. There's Vine even, if you want to record, what is it, an 8-second video? There's Vine if you want to record stuff. All these different resources for recording video. Heck, there's even MySpace still, oddly enough. There's Yahoo. There's all these different platforms you can record on. There's Mega for uploading. There's RapidShare. There's Dropbox. There's all these different services. I'm probably forgetting some too. AngelFire, even, if you want to host a website. It's still around. Oh, wait, no, AngelFire is not still around. No, AngelFire is still around, but GeoCities is not. There we go. Well, anyway, a growing number of people are protesting the Border Patrol and their illegal checkpoints. And to do this, they're recording it with video and refusing to comply requests for answers, which you don't have to do. You do not have to answer any questions to law enforcement. You never have to answer any questions. This is just simple law. You always have the right to remain silent, not just when you've been arrested, despite what some Border Patrol agents may try to tell you. You always have the right to remain silent. Now, it's not always appropriate to invoke that, but you do always have the right to remain silent. Regardless of the situation, you always have that right. If a policeman runs up to you and says, "Where'd that guy go? I just saw him run out of the store," and you saw a robber run out of the store with a bag of stolen goods and a gun, it might not be appropriate to invoke your right to remain silent at that point, because the law enforcement officer is actually trying to do his job at that point. So you could, and I would not be mad at you for saying, "Oh, he went that way." That would be okay. So there's a time and place for everything, as the good book says. But if we're talking about you've been stopped at a traffic stop, you don't have to be a mean person, right? You don't have to be mean or out of character or out of line or disrespectful. But you should assert your rights if they are being infringed or attempted to be infringed or whatever. So let's say you're at a traffic stop and the policeman says, so where are you headed? Now, this may be a form of habit. They may be trained to say this. I don't know. You don't have to answer that question. So you can just say, places. And that's usually a good way to play it off, because you don't have to answer that question. But a good way to play it off would just be to say, just going, just places, So you don't have to answer that question. So you don't necessarily have to be all up in the grill and say, I don't need to answer that. But it may be easier to play it off as sort of a sarcastic way and just say, just heading. So a growing number of Americans are protesting the Border Patrol, and more YouTube videos are springing up which are documenting citizens' resistance to the Border Patrol at checkpoints through the 100-mile zone along U.S. borders. Now, this is not just the southern border, believe it or not. This is also along the Canadian border, on the West Coast, and on the East Coast. Now, here in our area, in East Tennessee, we managed to avoid most of it because the 100-mile buffer zone, the demilitarized zone, which is actually a very well-militarized zone, is encompassing most of South Carolina and North Carolina and the east coast of Georgia. It does not touch Atlanta, by the way, going by the map I've seen. So if you live in Atlanta or you know people who live in Atlanta, you're not going to see any Border Patrol checkpoints in Atlanta yet until they expand it to a 200-mile zone. Fortunately, or rather, not fortunately, but interestingly, Michigan is 100% covered by this 100-mile buffer zone because Michigan is on the Upper Peninsula, which sticks up, and so on both sides you have the 100-mile buffer zone. So all of Michigan is encompassed. More and more YouTube videos are documenting this, though. In some cases, motorists are just waved through because the Border Patrol agents don't want to have to deal with you. You say, I don't answer questions, I want a lawyer present, all this stuff, and they'll just say, okay, just go. Well, in some cases, motorists are waved through, but in others, they're actually violently arrested and detained, according to videos, and simply for refusing to answer questions or consent to searches. Because keep in mind, you don't have to consent to searches at any point. Now, they can forcibly search your car, but you don't have to consent to that search of your car, is what I'm saying. Where for some odd reason they think that you refusing to let them search your car is you being a terrorist, where in actuality that's not all the case. That's actually you being very American, funnily enough. Well, one example cited by the Houston Chronicle reporter Dane Schiller, a Texas truck driver, was forcibly removed from his truck, and he was arrested and held for several hours, according to these allegations, for telling officers that he was opting out, that's in quotes, opting out, of discussing his citizenship. Navy veteran Thomas Sauer, 26, says he lost his job as a result. Now, this guy's a Navy vet. This guy's as American as they come. You and I, we're Americans, right? We're buddies, where we sort of have that common bond, where we're citizens of the United States of America. That's sort of a common bond we share. Now, some people hold that in a higher regard than others. I see myself as a Georgian first and a American about fifth or so. Actually, I see myself as a Christian first, a member of my family second, a member of the state third, a member of my extended family maybe before that, and then a member of the country about 10 spots down. Well, in one example, this person was allegedly dragged out of his truck and violently arrested for refusing to discuss his citizenship. But the guy's a Navy vet. Of course he's an American, right? I mean, of course the guy's an American. He's a vet, of course. Well, he was arrested, and they said, according to these allegations, he says that they told me I had the right to remain silent, which you do, not just when you're under arrest, though. At all points in time, you have the right to remain silent. Even though Border Patrol agents deleted Sauer's cell phone video of the encounter, he was able to retrieve it using data restoration services. The 19-minute video has nearly 150,000 views on YouTube. So, why did they delete his video? Don't they want to be held accountable for their actions? If they were doing the right thing and stopping a potential terrorist, you'd think they want the evidence to be there so that they could then get medals and a Presidential Medal of Freedom, maybe a Nobel Prize thrown in there. The governor of Texas will come out. Rick Perry will come out, guns a-blazing, and he'll give them a medal for being courageous in stopping the efforts of ISIS terrorists disguised as Navy veteran truck drivers. Why not? I would want a video. Well, even so, the video is online, despite their efforts to delete it. Rick Herbert of California refused to consent to move his car into an inspection area to have it searched, and he was dragged out of the vehicle in front of his crying wife and 4-year-old son, according to allegations. Border Patrol cannot legally pull motorists over from vehicles just because they refuse to answer questions, says James Lyle of the ACLU. Well, everyone has the right to remain silent and cannot be compelled to answer any questions. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures of people and property in practice, says the American Civil Liberties Union. Border Patrol agents routinely ignore the limits of their legal authority. And that's to be expected. They're statists. What do you expect? These guys are borderline fascistic, although they see themselves as helping the homeland, the motherland, whatever. Well, to quote the Fourth Amendment specifically, it says that it's the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, which shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be searched. Now, Border Patrol can thwart that and say, well, I had probable cause because I thought he was a terrorist, Well, the Fourth Amendment does guarantee you those rights, though. The problems are compounded by inadequate training for Border Patrol agents, a lack of oversight by CBP and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and consistent failure of CBP, I should say, to hold agents accountable for abuse, says the ACLU website. Thus, although the 100-mile border zone is not literally constitution-free, the U.S. government frequently acts like it is. Although I would say it expands beyond that, where the U.S. government consistently acts like the entire country is 100% constitution-free. They are lawless, essentially. They act as though there is no law in this land because they can't be held accountable. If you try to take a video of them, they'll just delete the video and say that that you dropped your phone or you deleted it yourself, or they smelled weed and your phone was high. Your phone was smoking weed and deleted the video by accident. That's why they smelled weed. All these different ridiculous excuses that can be used and can be exploited. So I try to make a point that the federal agents in all jurisdictions and in all regions are rather inept and very bad at their jobs. Sometimes this is in our favor, and sometimes this leads to unfortunate incidents like what happens on the border, where they're so bad at their jobs and don't recognize the law at all that they arrest people with no cause and then get away with it scot-free because the people who hire them also don't understand what the law is in this fine country of ours, where you are free unless you're within 100 miles of the border, or more than that, or more than that. Well, speaking of places which are not generally classified as free, Airbnb is expanding to Cuba. Now, I know people are mad about Cuba. People still have a sore spot about Cuba, particularly because of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I know. I wasn't there for that. I'm much too young to have been involved in the Cuban Missile Crisis, but I have read books about it. And that's ancient history, man. I mean, come on, get over it. The Cuban Missile Crisis happened over 50 years ago now at this point. So maybe we can put all that behind us, you'd think, but some people don't want to. Well, granted, Cuba is still led by a rather communist regime, which seems to be seeing the light of capitalism, perhaps, or maybe just they see something to be exploited. Well, nevertheless, the free market prevails in all regions, be it in Cuba or in other places where Cuba has a rather thriving free market. Actually, it's just a black market free market where they buy and sell used car parts and all sorts of things. Now, just because you live in a communist country doesn't mean there isn't a free market. There's a free market everywhere. It's just that it's not facilitated or recognized by the different governments, because a free market doesn't really require much of anything to work on the side of the government. It just requires people to buy and sell things unhindered. That's a free market. So Cuba definitely has a free market, I'm sure, where they're buying and selling loose cigarettes and other things of great value to people. Airbnb, though, is going to be offering apartment listings in Cuba on its United States site, according to some reports from the AP, where the most significant expansion of American business on the island since the two countries moved to normalize diplomatic relations earlier this year, which finally means I can get Cuban cigars without having to smuggle them down from Canada. The room booking service will list more than 1,000 Cuban properties for American users beginning today, with more than 40% in the capital of Havana. Airbnb has spent the last 3 months recruiting homeowners in Cuba, the AP reports, where networks of private home rentals have blossomed into a major tourist industry over the past 2 decades. The company says it aims to expand its offerings there over the coming months, though for now, only U.S. travelers will be able to use the service, according to reports. So this is a positive move, I would say, where some might disagree, but the reason this is a positive move is it allows people in Cuba who may have otherwise been unexposed to see what it's like to have a free market system, although very limitedly. And nevertheless, don't these people who live in Cuba have a right to buy and sell unhindered? Despite the fact that they live in a communist nation, or a nation which officially recognizes itself as being communist, that doesn't mean that they themselves are responsible for that. Well, let's put it the other way. people in Cuba perhaps see us as imperialist pigs, which maybe the people in power before were, but I'm not. I don't like imperialism very much. Most Americans don't, I like to think. So we aren't responsible for what happened in the 1960s because most of us weren't even alive back then, or were too young to have done anything about it. So it goes both ways. There's a lot of young people in Cuba who are not responsible at all for what happened during the Cuban Missile Crisis or the Bay of Pigs or any of that. They're just young people who don't know any better when it comes to a market society. They just don't know any better. So why not try to teach them by saying, hey, this is a American company. This is a service which we can offer you, but maybe it's a little bit on the gray market side, but we can offer you this service and it's totally legal and totally open to anyone in the United States, where, we tend to favor a free market system. I don't know why, but for some odd reason, people don't seem to favor that idea where they say, well, the Cubans are just bad. Cubans are just bad because Cubans are communists and communists are bad. I don't know why, but communists are bad. My history teacher taught me that. So it's it's just silly. Really, it's all just silly. Well, an NYPD cop has actually resigned after a passenger filmed him ranting and raving to an Uber driver. Now, Uber is another example, actually, of a great company which has arisen in the last few years, which is being somewhat oppressed by different governments. Although this time it's our government, too, which is sometimes oppressing the people who work for Uber. And this time, a direct agent of the New York government oppressed a Uber driver. So they had direct oppression straight from an agent of the NYPD. In this case, a New York Police Department detective has been transferred from his position on the Joint Terrorism Task Force after a video of his rather xenophobic tirade against an Uber driver has surfaced online. Detective Patrick Cherry is in some hot water following his rant on Monday, which is filmed by a backseat passenger and uploaded to social media. As of Tuesday, the 3.5-minute long video was viewed nearly 800,000 times on YouTube alone. So one mistake on the side of an NYPD officer who maybe give him the benefit of doubt, maybe he had a bad day. Maybe his coffee didn't have the sugar in it that he wanted. I hate it when that happens too. But if I went on a xenophobic rant, I'd be out that door. It. So unfortunately, I don't work for the NYPD where I would have the luxury of just being transferred to a different place with maybe even higher pay. Oh, well. Well, his rant was filmed by the backseat passenger, and the cop didn't seem to notice that either, that the person in the backseat was having his smartphone pointed right at the guy, and the policeman didn't seem to notice. And something that I thought was particularly stupid in the video was, now, again, this is alleged. It could be doctored. I don't know. But according to the video which I saw, the policeman was allegedly using rather offensive rhetoric towards the driver, who appeared to be a first, second-generation immigrant. In fact, I think in the video he claimed to have only lived in the States for 2 years or so. But that doesn't really matter. You can be a free market player if you've lived in the States for a day. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. And maybe you have an accent. Big deal. I can still understand you. You speak English. I speak English. We can communicate, no problem. The guy's an Uber driver. I can understand what he was saying in the video. But the policeman seemed to be a little bit upset that he was a immigrant and was sort of making fun of his accent a little bit, according to the video. Well, the officer at one point pounds the vehicle with his hand and blurts to the driver, who is of unknown nationality. I'll try to clean it up. I don't know what expletive planet you're on, according to the video. Tuesday's reassignment of Mr. Cherry is the latest development in which citizen videos uploaded to YouTube have gotten NYPD cops in some trouble. A different NYPD officer pleaded not guilty in February to assault and other charges levied after a bystander captured a Brooklyn tussle on film with his mobile phone. The film shows the officer allegedly stomping on the victim's head, which of course is not assault in the NYPD's view of things. In other instances, when police brutality when police brutality has been captured on film, the NYPD has sanitized Wikipedia entries about it as well. Although that might be a little bit harsh to say. Truly, NYPD officers who were on the job, although not on the clock at the time, did edit Wikipedia articles. I can't say that they did it in order to cleanse. Maybe they did it in order to offer their unique police perspective. In the latest videotaped incident, Detective Cherry also blurts, according to the video, "I don't know where you're coming from, where you think you're appropriate in doing that. That's not the way it works. How long have you been in the country?" he screamed at the Uber driver. And he really was yelling pretty loudly, according to the video that I saw. He was driving an unmarked car in the West Village, the policeman was, and with lights flashing. So Cherry pulled over the unidentified Uber driver, and the vehicle's passengers said the officer's rage was ignited when Cherry was trying to park his vehicle in traffic without turning on his blinker. The Uber driver passed him and gestured that he did not use his signal. according to the passenger who posted the video. Now, the video of that does not exist. He didn't start recording until the policeman got out of his car and approached the Uber driver's car. So there's no video of that. I don't know if that's true or not. This is just an allegation. But I'm not sure what sort of hand gesture he may have used to signal the police officer that he didn't use his blinker. Maybe the police officer misinterpreted it as a vulgar gesture. I don't know. So the driver kept apologizing to the officer during the rant to no avail. And according to the video, which I saw, he didn't seem to want any trouble. He was just trying to apologize because the guy's an Uber driver. He just wants to drive. The guy just wants to do his job. And you might argue maybe the policeman just wanted to do his job too, and he got oppressed by this guy who signaled to him that he didn't use his blinker. Truly, this is a shame, and the police officer must be given a medal, actually, by the mayor for his valiant efforts in stopping a police harasser for filming him as well. Well, it's a good thing that we have video cameras and we have video equipment, which allows us to hold policemen accountable, because that doesn't mean all cops are bad, not at all. But it does mean that the ones who are bad can be held properly accountable, and the ones who are good can be properly commended for their job by filming them in their good deeds. So it really should be a good thing both ways, no matter how you slice it, because, hey, that's free market. You can film what you want. Nuganomics.com is coming up in just a few seconds right here on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you. And Ross Chiropractic makes this promise to you. If he believes that he can't help relieve your pain, he will guide you to another health practitioner to assist you. Feel better now. You owe it to yourself. You really do. Call Dr. Ross now at 954-9591. That's 954-9591. And visit Dr. Ross at 7405 Shaliford Road, Suite 320. Ross Chiropractic, helping your body heal itself. Because when your spine's in line, you will feel fine. Call 954-9591. That's 954-9591 for Ross Chiropractic.
Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Hot News Talk Radio, join Real Estate U for an hour of information, guests, and new ideas about the dynamic Chattanooga real estate investment market. Real Estate U every Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on Hot News Talk Radio.
Have you ever thought about starting your own business? Trying to figure out which one may be right for you is a very daunting task. My name is Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source, and I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that are a right fit for you and the economy that we live in, and that are right for the greater Chattanooga area, both demographically and competitively. If you would just like to learn more about the opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My phone number is 423-875-5621. 423-875-5621.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy always put your needs first. Yeah, go ahead. Get an estimate from one of those big guy impersonal car repair chains.
No way!
Then bring it to Tommy and Charlie at Rivermont Pure. Chances are they'll beat their price and get your vehicle back on the road faster than you can say,
our customers come first. Hi, this is Charlie.
And I'm Tommy, owners of Rivermont Pure. We're here to serve you.
Rivermont Pure, the auto repair guys. Featuring ethanol-free fuel. Located across from Rivermont Elementary on Hickson Pike. Rivermont, Chattanooga. Rivermont Pure.
Rivermont Pure, that's where I've always gone to get my car serviced. My husband and I trust Charlie and Tommy. They always treat us right and give us a fair price. And they get the job done right the first time. Thank you, Rivermont Pure.
Call 485-3375. That's 485-3375.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 AM.
They say you can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell them much. But you can try. Cowboy Up with Texas on Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 Eastern, and he comments on the day's events. So, agree or disagree, call in and tell a Texan.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.